It's never too late to start and never too early to stop. Greetings, everyone. Namaste from Nepal. I'm your host and coordinator, Sweta Karki, representing Leo Club of Kathmandu Chabahil. We heartily welcome you to third day of our week-long webinar termed as Progressive and Professional Development on the topic The Art of Effective Communication. This very interesting session is going to be delivered by Mr. Joshuwa Ryan from Australia, who has completed his undergraduate degree in media and communications from Melbourne. He has given his 6 years of his life to this field by working as a manager, mentor, teacher, and lastly as a journalist throughout different countries, including Nepal, India, China, and Australia. We all know that communication is the very important thing when it comes to reaching out to people, be it visual, verbal, or through different medias, including television, radio, etc. We all know that today, this session, your participation, and our speaker's presence is all the outcome of effective communication over a week. You see that we are not perfect. Actually, we don't even need to be perfect to communicate, but learning and improving our communication skills does no harm. So, to help you master your art of effective communication and to stand out clear, confident, and captivating, we are having this session. We promise you that by the end of the session, your communication skills are going to get much better than before. Now, before moving further, I request all the participants to mute their mic. If any of you have queries, comments, or any questions, you can leave it in the chat box. Otherwise, you can unmute, raise your hand, and ask the speaker yourself. Also, please make the session interactive by sharing your video as well if possible. Before we start, I also have a small notice that we, Leo Club of Kathmandu Chabahil, is collaborating with We Listen Nepal, an NGO that works in the field of mental health for a social cause. We request everyone to light a cam at 8 p.m. on 10th September for the awareness of suicide prevention. Also, do click a photo and mention We Listen Nepal in your Instagram and Facebook story, and your photo will be featured in the We Listen page. So now, without any further delay, I would like to hand over the floor to our speaker. Mr. Joshuwa Ryan, shall we start?
All right, let's go. Namaste, Sapenjanale. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. You can all turn your cameras on if you like, or you can keep them off. Doesn't really make too much of a difference to our presentation. But I'm excited to get to know all of you guys. I think everyone looks as if they're in their undergraduate degree level, maybe up to 25 years old, but I'll try and keep this concise to around this level, okay? So without further ado, let me begin my screen share where we have a Prezi presentation. Has anyone ever seen this before? This image? Any hands up? No? Very difficult to see everyone actually while I'm screen sharing. Right, so right here we have an image which is broadcasting the art, okay? Communication is an art form, and many people will tell you that it's not what we would call artistic, that it's not something that you should pay much attention to, but I believe it is one of the biggest keys to being a successful person overall. Not only being a successful person internally, but with your relationships with everybody around you. So let's have a little bit of a closer look at, we've got The Simpsons coming up here. Let's have a closer look at the definition of communication. So, transferring a message from one person to another. This is the most basic, the absolutely most basic way that we can describe what communication is, all right? Now, we would further define it while retaining both content and context. I'm going to see whether in the chat bar, can anyone tell me what content means? I'm going to open up the chat window for you all. Can anyone tell me what content is? Just here, guys. Yeah, any topic, exactly right. The subject or message, subject matter. Okay, I'm seeing I'm seeing some consistency here. Exactly right, guys. So content is what we are talking about, the substance, okay? The subject of what we are actually talking about. So right now, our subject, our content is obviously communication. Now, another word that we've got in this sentence is context. Who can tell me what context is? Because this is actually probably a little bit more important for the message which we are going to be translating today. Who can tell me what context means? Situation, Kushal, very good. Environment from Lokesh, nice. Any other participants? Our context. It is exactly what Lokesh and Basha and Kushal have said. Toya, thank you very much. Exactly right, guys. So the circumstances, the situation that you are in, okay? So your communication is going to differ between whether you're talking with your parents, whether you're talking with your girlfriend or boyfriend, whether you're talking with maybe your kids if you have children, whether you're talking with your best friend, or whether you're talking in a professional experience in the workplace. Okay, so your context of how you communicate is going to change every single time. I will modulate my voice actually if I'm going to be talking to students compared to if I'm talking with someone from Australia. Okay, so that's one reason we would change our voices. We also make sure that we are acting professionally, which we'll talk about more in terms of body language later on in the presentation. So right here we have an interesting diagram of a guy who is taking a selfie and he's pretending to be in Dubai. I know many Nepalese are in Dubai. Now you can fake, okay? You can fake context very, very easily and you can role play as to where you are. This guy's pretending that he's in Dubai. In real life, he's right here. So our context, especially in the 21st century, in 2020 in particular, can be very easily changed, okay? We have to make sure that we are not only communicating effectively for our context, for our situation and scenario, but we also need to realize how to read between the lines as well, all right? So let's continue on. Oh, gee whiz. Sometimes Prezi is fantastic, sometimes it will have errors. Okay, so right here we have a brief introduction as to what good communication is compared to what bad communication is, okay? If you're going to potentially ever be a manager, or if you're going to be someone who tries to be successful, not only in their personal lives, but within your families as well. Tapos ko pariwa ekdam important communication, right? My Nepali sabi ya China. I lived in Nepal for 3 years, so I try to speak it a little bit sometimes, but it's a difficult language to remember. So good communication, yeah, ramro communication kit. It gets your message across to others in an effective way that's going to complete their assigned tasks. So if you're going to be a manager, if you're going to be talking with people, you must make sure that you are communicating in a way that they are going to understand. Someone's microphone on. I might get and I can unmute myself as well. Okay, so guys, bad communication. Oh, someone else has turned their microphone on again, but that's okay. So bad communication, guys, that's when people get lost. That's when people get confused. They start speaking and doing the wrong assigned task, which is never ideal, okay? You want to make sure that whenever you are communicating, talking, having a conversation with someone, assigning tasks, that you are being as effective as you can, all right? So today we are going to be focusing predominantly on how we can do this ourselves, okay? We're going to try and always do this one, and we are going to cross out bad communication from our lives. Yeah? Let's keep on going. Ooh, I've got to take off my annotation. Right. Time for a game. But before we have our game, I want everyone, if you can, to take a screenshot or a photo of this diagram right here, okay? This right here is communication 101, yeah? So I'll give you a minute or so to take a photo of this, and we'll get back to it in just a second. But communication, essentially, if we're to break it down, I would say right now, let me get the right color text. The source of our communication at present is me. I usually call myself Mr. Josh to my students, but I'm just going to call myself Josh to you guys, right? This is me talking to you guys as your direct source, okay? I'm encoding, I'm creating the information through a channel, which right now appears to be Zoom. You guys are understanding, I hope. Sabay jana bujh rahe ho?
बुझ ही रहा था.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Honcha?
understand.
Good, good. And the receiver is you guys. So at any time that you're thinking about communications, anytime that you're thinking about communications, these are the 5 things that happen. Now, if the source is not very strong, right? If your source is not going to be leading the way or encoding their messages in an effective manner, then the rest of the channels, okay, the decoding, the way that people understand is going to get a bit messy. You're going to get feedback, just like what we had before when somebody accidentally turned their microphone on and created a little bit of a feedback loop, okay? You've got to make sure that your message that you're delivering through is going to be effective for your audience, the person who is receiving, okay? So the people you're talking to, you're going to modulate, you're going to change the way in which you speak depending on who you're actually talking to. Right, let's have a look at a couple of our problems inside here. Let me clear off my drawings. So, first of all, let's have a look at a defective communication channel. Right here, we have a bit of an interesting visual, okay? This guy is saying there are 4 logs on the ground. This fella here is saying there is 3. How could we, from your perceptions, and I'm going to open this up to the chat box once again as well, how could we potentially solve this problem? How many logs are there? Can anyone tell me, is there 3 or is there 4?
4. I think there is 4 logs. There are 4 logs.
4. There's 4. Who thinks there's 3? Anyone think there's 3? Depends upon the perspective. Very good. Shaksham. Yes, exactly right, guys. So perception, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the correct answer right here is, okay? We could potentially say that there are 3 and there are 4, yeah? There are 3 and there are 4 logs. Now, it's all to do with perception, how people are looking at something. Everyone is going to look at a particular circumstance differently. Some of the kids that I teach right here in Shanghai, I'm in Maili Shanghai-ma. I think that's how I would say it in Nepali. So I'm in Shanghai at the moment. I put this photo up for my kids the other day in class, and they had a wonderful debate about who was correct and who was wrong. And we introduced what we call subjectivity. Okay, if something is subjective, I'm going to write this into the chat bar as well. If something is subjective, there is never a correct or incorrect answer. It depends on who is looking at it. And I think Nepalis in general are fairly good at being subjective and not having too heavy opinions on anything. Perception is a massive thing to understand, okay? People will have big arguments over perception. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much. We have another one. Ooh, where's my 6 and 9 one? Right here, we've got an argument between 2 people, again, looking at perception. One fella here is saying this is 6. One is saying 9. They are both correct in their own ways, right? We could say it is either one of them. Perception is such a huge thing to be able to understand. And if you can change the way in which you communicate to people and have your perception and have their perception understood, you're going to be a much, much better communicator as well, okay? Subjectivity, once again, extremely important. All right. So right here, we have an interesting diagram. Can anyone tell me what they see? I'll open the chat box once again. Can anyone tell me what can they see here?
2 horse.
2 horses?
man.
Okay.
A girl, a bird.
2 horse, 1 lady.
2 horses, 1 lady. Interesting. Horses, sea, ground, 2 horse, 1 lady.
Bird. Yes.
A bird.
Yeah.
It's one lady.
Also.
Bird.
Hills.
Yeah. Could we say, does this face exist or has it been created?
It has been created.
It has been created. Yeah, so from the environment, from the context of everything that is around right here, we have an aeroplane, someone said. Nice. Thanks, Sushil. So we have obviously got right here an interesting situation which has been created through the context and environment, and this is what we call distortion, okay? If something has been distorted, sometimes we get to see another different vision. Maybe right now on Zoom, you guys are looking at me and you're thinking, who's this Kairi talking to us and lecturing us about communication? And you might not like me, or you might have some kind of opinion, okay, through your perception. Some people might think, very, very interesting content that he's talking about, very interesting context that he's creating right here. Context and the content that comes through is something that is absolutely huge. I've got someone drawing on here as well. I might, nice. Okay. Let's move on to a very classic situation. Oh, what's happened to my mouse right here? A classic debate. Now, who can tell me, is this gold or is this blue, this dress? Can anyone tell me, is this blue or gold?
Gold.
Blue.
That's blue and
Got
gold,
a-
and it's changing.
Blue and gold.
Now it's white and gold.
I've got a lot of golds. Wow. Interesting, interesting. I see this dress as blue.
White and gold.
I see this as blue. Someone's saying blue and black. Someone's saying white and gold. I think it's definitely got some black in there. Someone's saying blue and gold. Samjana. Interesting, interesting. So once again, we have something that has been distorted through a particular lens.
Black and
Yeah. So when we're communicating, something we need to remember is that not everyone's going to be agreeing, okay? If you're an agreeable person, sometimes you're going to be just going along with it. If you're disagreeable, make someone who continually says no to things, okay? And will create an argument just for the sake of it. Now, nobody has resolved why some people see gold in this situation, why some people see blue, but it's a classic scenario where it doesn't really matter who is correct, okay? But the encoded message somehow in our decoding, okay? Do we remember our diagram from the slide just before? In that situation, our decoding has been impacted through some kind of error with either the camera or the dress itself, yeah? So communication can be a scenario where if you aren't communicating in the appropriate way for the appropriate audience, you're going to get mixed results and mixed feedback, okay? Let's move on to what else affects communication, okay? How do we sometimes get misunderstandings? I'm going to open this up again to the chat bar. Who recently has had some kind of misunderstanding? I want anyone to tell me who's had a misunderstanding recently. What is a misunderstanding?
To understand something in a wrong way.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be literally just not understanding a word, okay? Maybe it can be not understanding what somebody means. Sometimes it can be having an argument with somebody, okay? There are different levels of severity in which we have with our arguments, okay? I've got Basha and Nabin, okay? Samjana is saying miscommunications, okay? So right here we have number one, jargon, okay? I dissolved sucrose in some H2O because I was feeling some disequilibrium and vertigo, okay? Jargon is sometimes very, very difficult to dissect and understand. I'm not sure of everybody's English levels here, but even to a native speaker, particular words in this sentence would be quite difficult to actually understand, okay? Particularly disequilibrium and vertigo, right? Sucrose is a scientific terminology. If we have jargon which complicates or confuses people, we need to be able to make sure that we are simplifying our messages, okay? So if you're speaking to someone who's got a lower level of English, you would potentially change, okay? I would say, instead of saying dissolved, I would say something along the lines of, I mixed, yeah? I mixed some sugar in some, who knows what H2O is? Water. Because I was feeling some disequilibrium, okay? I was feeling, let's just say unsteady, okay? And dizzy, right? If we're going to be really simplifying messages, sometimes we need to not use confusing terms, okay? If you want to sound really, really smart to your friends who are also very intellectually intelligent, or if they're well-read, sure, say a sentence such as this, okay? Use your technical terminology, but remember your goal when you're communicating with anyone isn't to show that you are smart. It's not to show that you're intelligent. That becomes clear after time. Your goal while communicating is to make sure that the person speaking with you or listening to you is understanding what you're saying, okay? Some other things that can affect our communication right here are culture and religion, okay? Sometimes we have different cultural understandings, okay? Topic called Sanskriti. Sanskriti is the word for culture. Nepalese, you guys have some interesting different values, okay? I remember if you were to accidentally touch somebody's foot, or if someone is to kick somebody, this is very offensive. It's not a good thing to do at all. In the West, in Australia, in the USA, in many countries, people think, oh yeah, shoes are dirty, but it's not such a big a deal, okay? Culture can become such a huge part of the way that we understand things, right? Religion as well. I'm assuming probably the majority of you guys are Hindu. If you guys have different religious beliefs, I would say, unless you are absolutely devout, try and leave them out of your communications, because they can really severely affect the way that people understand you and people perceive who you are. Distractions can be a huge thing. If I were to be having my street in the background and people walking past, okay, these kinds of things will distract people all the time. If I were to have everybody's cameras switched on at the same time and be trying to keep up with what everyone is doing, I'm sure some of you are making some dinner. Some of you are probably sitting with a few friends. Maybe some of you are driving on the scooter, okay? These are things that distract you. Try and have as little distractions as possible while you are communicating, okay? Other examples of distractions would be when people fidget, okay? This is non-verbal communication, which we'll get to in just a moment, okay? But if I were to be going like this the entire time I was talking to you, okay? I'm not sure how big my camera is. If I'm going to be doing this, you're not going to be really clearly understanding what I'm saying. It's off-putting, and it's something that becomes quite unsteady for people to really comprehend while they're talking to you, okay? So try to have as little distraction as possible, okay? We'll talk more about that non-verbal communication in a minute, because it's probably the most important part of communication that you guys will begin to understand today. Let's move on. Let's move on. Right. So some other things that affect our comms or our communication: physical disabilities and our language, okay? Physical disabilities can be something that can be really, really stunting, okay? If somebody is deaf, for example, you're going to need to be able to use sign language, right? You're going to be needing lots of written communication. If somebody is blind, okay, these are probably the two biggest things. If somebody is blind, they're probably not going to be able to understand what you're meaning, your tone, how you're portraying a message in particular circumstances and scenarios, okay? Be mindful, okay? Be very, very mindful if you're speaking with someone who has a disability. I like to sometimes say all abilities manjeru, yeah? Someone who might have something that impacts their life in a certain way, but treat them with respect, okay? Make sure that you are still communicating with them in a way that is fair, all right? Language is a massive thing, right? I'm assuming that all of you guys are listening to me in your second or third language, right? It would be very difficult for me to speak all of this in Nepali. It's probably difficult for you guys. You're going to be very, very emotionally exhausted after listening to some Kaira speaking English at you for an hour or so, yeah? It's a very difficult thing to do, all right? Language is an important tool, right? The more languages you guys learn, the better. I'm currently trying to learn Chinese, and it's really, really difficult. Not as easy as Nepali. It's a huge skill. I think Nepalis are amazingly, amazingly skilled because you guys often can speak 2 or 3 languages. I think everyone will probably know Nepali, of course. Hindi, a lot of you guys know. If you're Newari, you'll know Newari. And then there's so many languages. Tamang, you've got Western Nepali. And I'm sure that there's miscommunications that happen even between people from Western Nepal and Eastern Nepal, even Central Nepal, yeah? Language can be such an amazing tool, but make sure that if you are talking to somebody, recognize if they've got a different language to you, yeah? Don't see it as an inhibitor. See it as something that can be playful, for example, okay? Try and be playful with this ability. Let's continue on here. Okay, our ethics and morals. Some people believe that our ethics can be a huge inhibitor in conversations. Who likes Donald Trump? I want to see you guys put a hand up in the air. Who likes Donald Trump?
I like Donald Trump.
I don't.
Yeah, I would say the majority, fire and fury. Wow. I'd say Donald Trump is probably one of the most dividing characters in human history, okay? Robin can speak 10 languages, nice. So when we let our morals get in the way of a conversation, I've got some colleagues at the moment who are from the USA who believe that Donald Trump is a good man, okay? I've got many, many people who absolutely hate him with a passion, okay? Now, if you're to be impartial about it and you're to not let your morals and your ethics get in the way of things, observe someone like Donald Trump as someone who exists and you're not going to be able to do anything really about him, okay? Nothing that you do, unless you're a very important person, is going to impact the way that he lives his life and does anything. Your ethics and morals are interesting things that stand in the way and sometimes inhibit you from communicating very, very effectively, okay? His ethics are that he likes to be straightforward and very, very direct in his communications. He's very funny, but he also has these things where he doesn't mind if he offends people, okay? He doesn't mind if he's going to offend someone who is black, or he doesn't mind if he's going to offend someone who is a Latina or somebody of the opposite gender to him. So he doesn't let his ethics and morals get in the way, and he's become the president of the US. Interesting guy. I would say be impartial toward someone like this. Hate is a very strong word to use, Robin. I disagree with a lot of the things that he says and thinks. However, try and be impartial and don't let a communication situation with somebody be soured by your ethics and morals. Try and be somewhere in the middle and be objective, okay? Our psychological barriers, okay? We all have attention deficiencies sometimes. I've been speaking for quite some time now. You guys are probably getting a little bit exhausted, okay? Our psychology is a massive part of how we are reading a situation. I've got Shaksham who's given me a message here. There's a sentence that I want to say, which is generally shaped well inside my head. When I say it out loud, I mess up everything. How do I get over this? I'm not sure. Can anyone else see my chat window? I think I'm probably the only one who can see my chat window on the screen. Can anyone else see this message that's been put up here? Let me copy the message and paste it onto the screen. Right. Here we go. So Shaksham here has messaged me. Any of you guys can message me at any time. I appreciate people who are sending me messages. So Shaksham's asked, there's a sentence that I want to say, which is generally shaped well inside my head. How do I get over this? Right. Shaksham, if you're speaking in English, for example, it's your second language. And unfortunately, there's not a perfect way in which you can overcome this immediately. All right. You will need to practice the way that you phrase. You will need to practice the word order, okay? If we're to get a little bit into our English here, I am an English teacher as well. In English, we generally have subject, verb, object, right? Or object. Subject, verb, then object. Often we, when translating from Nepalese, will forget that the verb goes in the middle of the sentence. The subject is always doing something. You guys will often have, I think in Nepali, you guys will have subject, object, and then the verb at the end, from what I understood of Nepalese. Orienting yourself to just understand that the verb always has to go in the middle of the sentence when you're speaking English is a massive thing that you can do to try and, I guess, gain that little bit more confidence. I would need to talk to you more, Shaksham, to be able to understand this. Okay. Shaksham was also asked my thoughts on being politically correct and overall purview on political correctness. That's a very interesting one, a very, very controversial one. I used to be what you call a social justice warrior. I was very, very, let me do a stopping of the screen share for a second. I was very passionate about social justice and making sure that everyone had the right opportunities and the right ways in which things go. I think it's a great thing to be respectful, but I don't like it when people are trying to explore a situation and they get cancelled as a result. I'm not sure, Shaksham, or for the rest of you for that matter, whether you guys have ever encountered cancel culture. So it means that you are saying a particular thing and you are getting cancelled as a result. This can be something that is a little bit worrying, okay? If you're saying something and getting immediately just cancelled because of it, not really fun, okay? Not really fun at all. So I would say if you are going to be respectful, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic to respect people. I would say try not to be racist or treat people differently because they are different to who you are, but also don't let it inhibit your ability to make a joke okay, or to try and understand a situation more clearly, right? Political correctness is something that's I'm in the middle on it, okay? I'm someone who used to be extremely passionate about feminism and about Black Lives Matter and things like this. Important topics, but try and be somewhere in the middle of the road is the only advice that I can really suggest to you guys. Yeah. I'm going to start screen sharing again. Thanks very much for the question, Shaksham. Anyone else who wants to ask me any questions, you are more than welcome to. Let's have a look at what we have next, okay? Barriers in general, guys, are there to acknowledge them, okay? Barriers don't cause no communication, but they can often cause a complete miscommunication. They can stuff up your entire day. If you have a miscommunication or a misunderstanding, okay, then it can be fundamentally terrible to your day, right? No communication is also a type of communication. If you're not talking to somebody, all right, if you're doing, what's the word, lang. If you decide to just stop talking to somebody or renege on some kind of commitment you made, yeah, ma bali gatu, yeah, and then you don't do it, right? And then you stop answering people's phone calls or their text messages, right? This kind of communication is also a kind of communication. You are sending a message that perhaps you're not committed, perhaps you're breaking the trust of this particular person. This is also a sign of communication. When you're not communicating, it is communication, all right? I want you to remember that, okay? Something that's inhibiting Nepal very much is lang. Don't do lang, all right? Right, so let's get into the nitty gritty stuff here. Let's do a quick time check as well. All right, so it's probably got about half an hour left. The two types of communication that we have are verbal, right, and non-verbal communication. I know that you guys probably know what these are, but let's explore them a little bit more and some of the, I guess, rules, which I would like you guys to have imparted from me today. All right. So first of all, don't speak in jargon or in slang, right? This is particularly important in meetings, in professional circumstances and situations. Obviously, between close friends, bring some jargon in, no problem. But if you're in a situation where you are trying to be professional, whether it's at school, whether it's in your undergraduate course, whether it is talking with somebody who's going to employ you, or even if you are employed or a business owner, make sure that when you're communicating with people in these circumstances, try to leave out the jargon, okay, the slang, unless you are doing it to create a sale, unless you're trying to make people like you a little bit more, okay? Today, I've tried to cross between English and a little bit of Alicante Nepali to try and retain your attention that little bit more. But this is a technique that's only used to try and boost people's attention once again. Sometimes it's a great way to break things up. However, if you want to be professional, try to leave the jargon out, okay? Now, two monologues don't make a dialogue, right? Who knows what a monologue is? Can anyone tell me what a monologue is? Write in the chat bar if you can. Who has heard of a monologue?
Maybe speaking just as an individual.
Yeah. So right now, Josh is speaking in a monologue format, okay? I'm essentially giving you guys a lecture, but I'm trying to receive your feedback at the same time. Monologues are basically when you are talking to yourself and you're not receiving or you're not impacted by the way that the audience is looking at you or registering you. I've got a couple of definitions coming up into the chat window as well. Self-talking, a long speech from Kadka. Uday is saying self-talking. Yeah. So we have monologues, which is basically when we're talking and we're not impacted whatsoever by the audience and who is receiving our message. Try and avoid, when you're speaking to somebody, doing this, okay? Try and avoid just speaking in a monologue format and check in to see whether they're understanding you, okay? In Shakespeare, it's a wonderful thing to listen to and watch. However, make sure that the person you're actually talking to in the middle of a sentence is actually understanding what you're talking about, okay? Check in and make sure that the dialogue or the conversation you're having is going to be that little bit more effective, all right? The other thing I would say is listen, okay? Let's have a look at how we can listen that little bit more effectively, all right? Be self-aware, right? I'm looking at some people's screens at the moment. I'm enjoying watching some people's cameras, actually, the way that you are responding and reacting. Be self-aware that when people are watching you, they are going to actually be a little bit different if you are scowling, okay? If you're glaring at them while speaking, right? That's going to impact the way that they're going to talk to you in a massive way, right? If you're grinning like an insane person, it's also going to be impacting the way that they are going to talk to you, all right? I'm not going to lecture you guys on how you should behave and act, but if you're going to be an effective communicator, while you are in a conversation with somebody, make eye contact with them, okay? Repeat things that they said, show that you're listening, okay? Some people, when they are having a conversation, will look away, right? If I were to be listening to you guys and looking over here, for example, I'm not going to be registering all of the body language that you're putting across, okay? This is something that is so key. And I would attribute this myself to a little bit of the success that I've come across. Right now, I'm getting a great salary in a really wonderful company. And it's because in my interview, I was able to be really super active in the way that I was listening. I was very fixed on making eye contact, not too intense, of course, but making sure that I could develop this little bit of rapport and repeating things that they were saying, using their name a lot of the time, but also just even writing notes in the middle of it, showing that you are really attentive into what that person's saying. This is a massive way to build up your communication skills when you're not even speaking, okay? This is something absolutely essential that I would say that you guys can do, all right? Try and be respectful as possible, okay? This is going maybe back into that political correctness situation before. Be private in cases of conflict, all right? I know that gossip is a lot of fun, right? Try and make sure that when you're having a communication or a conversation with someone, all right, try and think about what, there's a great guy called Jordan Peterson that I like to listen to quite a lot, right? And he says, when you're talking about somebody, I'm going to just write this into the slide as well. When you're talking about somebody, make sure that if they were there in the room, they wouldn't disagree with what you're saying about them, right? This is a huge thing that you guys can do to, I think, be not only private in the cases of conflicts, but being appropriate and respectful, okay? If the person that you're talking about would be offended or would completely disagree with what you're saying about them, I'd just say try not to say it. Yeah, it's a fairly simple rule, but try and follow it. Yeah, gossip can be really harmful and hurtful to people. Try and be fair when you're assessing others or discussing who they are, right? Let's continue on, right? Listening causes empathy. Who knows what empathy is? Keyword right here, empathy. If people don't know what this means, I'll get you to write it down as one of your words. All right. Who knows what empathy is? Hands up, or messages in the chat.
To
Got
feel
one
for others.
Yeah. To feel others. To walk in somebody else's. Can you zoom it more? Udaya says. Okay. Oh, Udaya, was this? Sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked here. Udaya, when you said, "Can you zoom it more?" Were you meaning the quote that I used just before?
Actually, was referring to the text that you just wrote on the screen.
Yeah. That text was very, very small. My apologies.
Yeah.
Right. If you want a referral to it, I can send you a link at the end of the video. Okay, at the end of the session today. Right. So listening causes empathy. I've got some great answers coming in for what empathy is. It's literally understanding the way that somebody is feeling. Okay. Trying to show that if somebody is feeling hurt, okay, or if somebody has some kind of emotion, all right, that you're able to listen to them and show that you're feeling what they are feeling, all right? If you're listening attentively, making that eye contact, repeating what they said and how you are understanding it, the way that you have decoded, okay, remembering that thing that I asked you to screenshot right at the start of this before our game, make sure that you are showing that you are feeling what they are doing, okay? This is what we even call emotional intelligence. Has anyone heard of emotional intelligence before? Sometimes they call it EQ versus IQ, right? If you're able to have this empathy, you're probably going to be a successful person, right? You're going to be someone who gets along with others and is, oh, there we go. You're going to be someone who gets along with others and will have the respect of them as well, okay? Being sensitive towards people's values. All right, so for example, in Nepal, I would not bring my cow from Australia. I've got a pet cow in Australia in my backyard. I would not come over to Nepal and decide to cut it in the middle of Sorakute Chowk, right? That would be extremely insensitive, right? I love to eat beef. I love to have a steak. Being respectful of what other people value and consider as moral themselves is a super important thing to make sure that you understand, right? Be that little bit open-minded as well. If people have different views to you, try and accept them while you're listening as well. If you disagree completely with what someone's saying and start to cross your arms, scowl, yeah, this is sending some really, really closed messages and you're not going to get the most out of that situation, okay? Let's move on. So, nonverbal communication, boom. Here we go. This is the good stuff right here, guys. This is really, really important stuff, okay? Tone of voice that you use. Right now, I'm using quite an assertive tone of voice. I'm also using my hands quite a bit. If I were to be a little bit uncertain, unsure about stuff, and potentially slouching in my posture and not really sure what is happening, right? The tone of your voice will completely change the way that people are viewing you and listening to you. This is something that will change, especially with practice, okay? Your tone, if you're trying to sound very severe, right? If you're trying to be maybe a manager, I'm not sure whether any of you guys, is anyone here a manager? Just put in the chat window. Is anyone a manager right here? I'm trying to gauge my audience a little bit here. Jungmu Sherpa, he said yes a couple of minutes ago. Can anyone tell me if they're a manager? Just write it into the chat window. Otherwise, I'm going to assume no one is a manager and I'll skip over. Jungmu is not a manager. Manish is not. I know that we've got maybe only one or two who are managers in here. All right. If you're a manager, or even if you're wanting to be a CEO one day, using tone of voice to be assertive is a massive, massive thing. Tone of voice is basically the way in which you're speaking. If you're going to be very, very serious and yell at people and be really, really forward in the way that you're communicating at them, that can also be super, super effective, and it can alarm them. It can make them feel like they have a sense of urgency and they've got to do it immediately. But people generally don't like being talked to like this, right? People usually don't like being talked to like this in a general circumstance, okay? Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes if someone's doing lang, then you can point at them, all right? And you can use an assertive and a really loud, angry tone of voice, but try and make it so that it's playful, right? Try and make it so that your tone goes a little bit up and down and you're not speaking in a monotone, okay? I used to teach IELTS as well. I used to teach IELTS at a wonderful company called Alpha Beta. And when I was doing speaking tests with a lot of the kids, there was a very monotone that they would always speak in the same tone and they would not change and they would not go up and down. They would continually speak in the same way like this. And people would often get very, very uninterested very, very quickly because they were not changing the way in which they were talking, okay? Try and bring your voice up and down, okay? This brings me to hand gestures, all right? Hands. Your hands have so much power while you're speaking, okay? When you have open arms, right? This is a great thing. I'm going to stand back a little bit for this as well. When you're speaking potentially to a group or audience, if you're able to use open hands and gestures, this is one of the most welcoming things that people can receive, okay? If you're trying to seem as if you know what you're talking about, okay? Josh knows what he's talking about right here. Hands down like this, okay? Make sure it's flat. Think about the movement that you're doing as well. If you want to seem a little bit aggressive, okay, or if you want to put someone on the spot, point at them, right? But think about it, it often makes people feel really, really uncomfortable as well, okay? Unless they're an incredibly confident person, okay? If you're pointing at somebody, putting them on the spot and saying, what do you think about this? It's generally going to make them feel that little bit uncomfortable, but you have the power to do that if you choose, okay? If you choose to make them feel that little bit on the spot, you can do it. But remember, it can be considered aggressive, all right? If you want to be an aggressive communicator, if you want to be a manager or a CEO who gets things done, right? Use your hand, right? Point while you're doing it. Otherwise, I would say make sure that you are doing open palms, right? Bring your hands together, shrug. Show that there are options, okay? This literally shows that you have options, okay? Your movement. Make sure you're not moving in a huge way, right? But don't stay rigid and still, okay? Don't just be extremely still while you're talking or you're even listening to somebody, yeah? Keep a little bit of movement around, show that you're alive, show that you're there. Eye contact, massive, okay? Huge, huge, huge thing to be able to do. Eye contact can also be something that can be misconstrued and misconstructed as being a little bit sexual sometimes, okay? If you are with somebody of the opposite sex and you're just staring at them, this is nice, right? It can send off the wrong messages, so be super, super aware of that, okay? But try and give eye contact with people to the appropriate degree, okay? 4 or 5 seconds, okay? Then it gets a little bit weird sometimes. Look away, take a break, okay? Maybe look at your hands or something that you've got with you. But remember, eye contact is something that can also form trust, okay? While I was a manager, actually, at my old company, I had a great guy who was working under me. But when he was talking to people, he would look above their heads at their forehead, yeah, instead of looking into their eyes. And it made people feel extremely uncomfortable, right? I'm not sure for what reason that was, but we ended up getting a lot of complaints about it, and we had to do a lot of work with him to have him change this habit that he had while he was talking and listening to people. Make sure that you're making the eye contact right in the middle of their eyes, not staring into their soul unless you may be. Can you give advice? Okay, great. Shiksha. Very, very good. Can you give advice to some of us who are shy and avoid eye contact? So that's a great question, Shiksha. Now, obviously, it's not going to be something you can change immediately, all right? So Shiksha has messaged us in the group here. Oh, I'm out of practice from my Zoom a little bit. If you are just that little bit shy, you're not going to be able to change this personality trait in being low on the assertiveness scale immediately, okay? There's a slide which will come up in a minute, which basically demonstrates how there are very high levels of assertiveness and some people who are very low. It's what we call a personality trait, okay? If you're maybe somewhere on the low level of being assertive, it's something that's not necessarily a weakness, okay? But it's something that you can improve with setting small goals, okay? Now, Shiksha, I'm not sure how old you are, but let's just say that you are a 20-year-old woman and you want to be able to talk more with people and seem that little bit more assertive, all right? Practice it initially with your family, all right? Your family are the closest people that you have. I hope you have a family. They're a wonderful thing. If you don't have a family, try it with your closer friends, someone that you trust, someone that's maybe even a little bit younger than you, someone that maybe you can say to, Tole, or Timmy, yeah. Maybe practice it with someone who's on the very intimate and close level, okay? And try and just keep eye contact with them for that 5 or 6 second period of time, okay? You definitely don't want it to get weird. But it's something that you can't change immediately, Shiksha. So it's something that you can develop over time, all right? I would even say try acting, try recording yourself, okay? Try looking at yourself, especially in isolation. I think Nepal right now has had another wave. India has had a very, very big wave of COVID come in from what I've read in the news. So a lot of you guys are spending time at home. I would say video yourself, all right? Have a bit of time where you are looking directly into a lens and watch how you communicate. Be critical of yourself, be kind to yourself while you do it, but try and make it so that you are feeling that little bit more, I would say, comfortable, and you know how you come across while you're communicating. It can be definitely awkward sometimes to look at yourself while you're doing it, but it's really, really important to be able to do. One more thing that I'm going to get you to do is the power stance. Actually, I'm going to get everyone to do this at the same time, right? So I'm going to do a stop of the screen share. I'm going to get everyone to stand up, right? And so everyone's standing up. Yash, Sita, Sweta, Basha, everyone stand up. Everyone's standing up, no matter where you are, right? I want you to put your hands, actually I'm going to stand a little bit further back like this. Okay, I want you to stand with your feet at shoulder width or a little bit wider. I want you to put your hands on your hips like this. Hands on the hips. Chest out. Raise your head ever so slightly and smile. Smile the biggest smile that you can. And hold it. You might feel like an absolute idiot, but just smile as a smile that you can. You're probably feeling really stupid. Just smile, okay? Feel the power and the dopamine, the energy that's coming through your brain, right? You are going to feel instantly more confident, happier, and a little bit better about what you're currently doing as a result of doing this, okay? This is a thing that you can do to trick your brain into being a little bit more confident, right? A little bit happier and a little less shy and reserved, right? I can guarantee you right now, if I were to talk to any of you after doing that, I would get a different response from the manner in which you're conducting yourselves, okay? So please remember that if you're going to be maybe even heading into an important job interview, or if you're going to be heading to talk to someone maybe you're a little bit nervous about, maybe you're going on a Tinder date, do this just before you go into the room, right? Go to the toilet beforehand, stand there. You'll feel probably a little bit stupid the first time you do it, but it's something that can really, really change your mentality, and you get that little bit more confident as a result, yeah? Actors do it all the time. If any of you guys know Hugh Jackman, this is one of the tricks that he does often before he performs, all right? As well as meditation, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. More than 90% of what you are saying isn't coming out of your mouth. Anyone know Will Smith? He is a
speak what
phenomenal,
we hear
phenomenal
from
actor.
others
Yes,
or what
Prince.
we have been
He is
accumulated.
the Prince of Bel Air.
Yeah.
Yes, Prince.
Yeah. So he is an incredibly talented actor. And actors, I think, are some of the best people that you can learn communication skills from, right? When you are communicating, you're not just speaking, okay? Obviously in written forms, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. The way that you even sit while you're talking to somebody, all right? Right now, we've got most of the participants in this meeting with their cameras off. However, the way in which you sit, even in a Zoom conference or a Zoom call, severely impacts the way that they are going to be talking to you, okay? Whether you're smiling, maybe you're scowling, maybe you're looking away, maybe you're playing something on your phone. All of this impacts the way that you're talking. This is speaking. This is communicating without even talking, right? I've got some people who are switching the cameras off and on again, probably getting a little bit bored and a little bit tired because we have been going for almost an hour now. Remember that we are communicating with all of our body language. Remember the power of the hands, your eye contact,
Hello,
right?
ma'am. Azur,
Slouch.
ununa nih.
Azur.
Ununa bahain.
Can you unmute?
Costco. Muting gani hunja.
She's been muted. She's been muted.
So 90% of what you're saying right here, unless you're forgetting to mute yourself, isn't coming out of your mouth, okay? Remember, your shoulders have a lot of power as well. I was reading something the other day that said, try and remove your shoulders from your ears, okay? Try and remove your shoulders and separate them away from your ears. Push them as far away as possible, all right? This is something in which will help your posture, okay? If you're somebody who slouches, okay, it's a bad habit. If you're going to be sitting with a hunch like this is also communicating to people that maybe you're not very confident, okay? Maybe you're not fit, okay? You want to make sure that you have a straight back like this, separating your shoulders from your ears, right? And then obviously everything else that you do, okay? Smile, okay? Smiles go a really, really long way. If you are Nepali, chances are that you are either Derai Sundar or Derai Ramri Kitty. Yeah, Nepalese, I think, are some of the most attractive people in the entire world. You've won the lottery.
Thank you
right
so
there.
much.
Smile as much as you can. Yeah, smiling is such a beautiful way to communicate, and it instantly makes people that you're talking to feel a heck of a lot more comfortable, right? And it will have this positive reverberation or vibration that will come back to you, okay? Remember to smile. It's such a good thing to do, yeah? All right, enough of me ranting right here. Right here we have a table, all right? Now, this could be debated for hours and hours on end as to whether it's real, how accurate it is, my apologies. However, words are only 7% right? Words are an extremely important thing to be able to use. However, they're only 7% of what you're actually putting across, yeah? Voice tone, your modulation, right? If I were to be speaking in an Australian accent like this, I don't think anyone could understand what I'm talking about. Can you guys understand what I'm saying? When I'm talking like this in an Aussie accent? No. Nobody can understand. So when you're talking, make sure you're speaking toward your audience. Yeah. I know a lot of Nepalis all like to travel. I think Australia is a big destination. Maybe eventually you would be able to understand that if you were to travel there for quite a while, but be aware of your audience and the way in which you phrase your accent, okay? Whether you pause while you're speaking. Sometimes people completely forget to stop, all right? Very, very useful to do. If you are in the middle of a sentence, you can pause and you can create dramatic effects. You can use your hand as well to guide you, okay? I would say when you put your hand up like this, no one's going to interrupt you, okay? When you hold it up and you pause in the middle of a sentence, okay? And if you're saying something that's interesting, of course, you'll eventually be that little bit more captivating, okay? Make sure that when you're talking to people, you have this ability to stop and pause, okay? Make sure that you aren't using the monotone that a lot of people use, all right? Don't just speak at the same level like this and just keep on going and going and going and talking about nothing at all, because then people will get very, very bored and tired of listening to you and they will probably switch off and forget what you are talking about, okay? Bring your voice up and down, right? Be expressive, stress words, okay? That's that 38% right there. Your body movements, okay? Like we talked about before, the hands, your power of the hands, but also think about the way that you're maybe sitting, okay? If I'm to be sitting in a very relaxed way, right? This communicates sometimes confidence, but it will probably say that right now I'm not in a job interview. I probably don't care as much, right? Maybe I'm trying to show that I'm very cool, I'm very, very calm, but remember that that's going to be communicating a particular message to someone, right? If you're having, it depends on your context. Once again, it depends completely on who you're talking to. But if you're going to be very, very relaxed and sitting like this, right? It's giving a particular message about how you are receiving them, okay? Your posture and the way in which you sit is huge. Very, very, very big. Your arms, of course, okay? If you're to be moving and shaking about, very good. Sometimes people will itch quite a lot, or they will tap. I think a lot of people will actually shake their legs like this. They'll be walking around, or when they're listening to somebody, they'll have that nervous jitter. Try not to do that too much, okay? It can be a little bit off-putting when somebody's listening to you, right? Be aware of your entire body, from your toes all the way to the top of your head. It's a very, very important thing, right? Let's continue on to, I'll skip that for now because we've been going along a little bit. Okay, so we've got a big but right here. Now, this is the table I was talking about before, all right? When you are speaking with somebody, try and think about where they land on this scale. This is another thing that I would like you guys to potentially screenshot yourselves. I'll zoom in a little bit more as well because it is a little bit small to read. I hope this is showing up on your screens nice and clearly. Now, high assertiveness. Can anyone tell me what assertiveness is? Any ideas? Chat bar is open for anybody to say as well. Who can tell me what assertiveness is?
To show boldness.
Yeah, being bold. Good. Any other ideas? What assertive is? Being direct. Okay, good. Very good, very good. So being assertive means that you tell people what you're thinking. You don't necessarily let people boss you around or take control. Usually you are the one who is in control, okay? It's confidence. Thank you, Sajana. It's something that is very, very important for, I think, people who want to become managers and bosses, okay? But if you don't have a high level of assertiveness, it's not a huge problem, okay? Low assertiveness brings people in who are systematic, okay? They are often very good listeners, okay? They're often very considerate people, okay? At the moment in Shanghai, a lot of the people that I come across are what I would call systematic personalities. It's very highly transactional. They are on the lower level of all of this here, okay? They are low in the way that they express themselves. They are low in the way that they are assertive. However, they are often extremely disciplined, and they will be able to do things in a very calculated way without being distracted, okay? Some people are extremely considerate. They are highly expressive, but they're low in their assertiveness. They're often a very good empathetic listener, okay? Someone who is low in their expression, they might be a manager, okay? They might be a very direct personality who will not necessarily be loud in the way that they're speaking, but this is a great thing to be able to do. If you are a direct communicator, so being low in your emotional expression, but you are being very, very direct in your communication and very controlling, perhaps using the hand a lot as well, but also being super concise in the way that they are wording their sentences. This is something that is a very positive thing for managers and bosses, all right? But consider when you're talking to somebody where they fit on this spectrum, okay? I would be probably considered someone who is spirited, okay? I like to display my emotions a lot, and I like to show my assertion above people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm any better than someone who is direct or somebody who is systematic or someone who is considerate, okay? I would like you guys to maybe reflect on where do you sit on this scale, okay? And something that can also help you understand this a little bit more if you're confused as to who you think you are is looking up a website called 16personalities.com. Has anybody ever heard of this before?
No.
Actually, do you know what? I'm going to do a quick Google search on 16personalities.com.
Yeah, I've tried that.
Very good. I'll get everyone to actually do this. I'll paste the link into our chat window as well for everyone who's watching. This right here can place you on the scale that I just showed you there, where you've basically got 16 different variables in which you will basically find out more about who you are personally, okay? And you can start to assess the people who are around you, okay? The people who surround you are going to be often different to who you are, okay? They might be extroverted. Let me see whether I can find the scale right here. I've got something hiding or obscuring my view here. I'm going to search, okay. ENFP is my results, okay? Let me see if it comes up. Conclusion. Right, so basically, guys, I'm going to just okay, versus their brains, okay, versus their thinking. Some people will make decisions with their heads, some people who are like me make their decisions with how they're feeling, with their hearts, okay? Then we have people who are more judging, right, versus prospecting or percepting, okay? Prospecting with perceptions. These are basically the 8 different things that you'll be adjudicated on. I would recommend that everyone takes this test, okay? It's an amazing thing to do, and it gives you a bit of an insight into who you are, and you eventually will start to think about the way that you're communicating to other people while keeping this in mind, all right? So I'll get everyone to, I think I pasted this into the chat bar already, but I didn't actually. There's the link there for anyone who hasn't got it. Anyone who's watching on Facebook Live is also more than welcome to test this out, 16personalities.com. Right, so we just have a couple of minutes left, and then I'm going to open up for some questions. I realize we have been going for an hour and 15 minutes so far. Let's jump right into here. Okay, sometimes, so we're going to be speaking about writing. Sometimes we need a channel other than spoken words, all right? If you guys are going to be entering into a job with somebody, if you're going to be maybe doing some kind of work with someone that's a little bit more formal, okay, make sure that you have written agreements. Make sure that you have written communications and records of this taking place, all right? Hopefully not just on a piece of paper. Try and do it electronically as well. But written communication is something that is also extremely important to perfect, all right? If you make a promise to somebody, or if someone makes a promise to you, right, that they're going to fix your scooter, or if they are going to help you with some kind of assignment, get it in writing, okay? Even if it's just a text message, even if it's a letter, even if it's an email. Emails are very, very important. Make sure that it's in writing. Make it so that it's there, and that if it doesn't get followed through on, you can do something about it, okay? It often takes a little bit longer to design written communication, obviously by its nature, but it's something that you guys can do if you are wanting to make things much more formal, okay? I would recommend doing this as much as possible when you're working, okay? When you're in your careers, okay? So, if something is extremely complex, all right, often we will be needing to explain it that little bit more, potentially with visual examples, okay? And it activates people's understanding that little bit more because they can spend time reading, all right? Depending on the amount of discussion, sometimes it will help us guide, right? Sometimes it will help us guide where we are going with our thoughts. And it can make us just sound that little bit more professional, all right? Often, I really, really like this graphic right here. Written communication, okay? And thus, I can conclude they have written that my hypothesis was indeed correct. And people can sip their cup of tea and be very, very efficient in their understanding. And everybody feels extremely intelligent afterwards. The way that I'm feeling today, and often as a teacher, and I'm sure everybody has this sometimes, when you're speaking, it's obviously going to be less grammatically correct, and it's going to be less concise, right? So we often end up saying things like, and so, like, well, so yeah, it's like, you know, right? This happens to everybody, okay? This happens to absolutely everybody. Embrace it, practice speaking that little bit more if you can. It makes it so that you can write or you can speak like you are writing by speaking out loud more often. But I can guarantee you guys, this happens to absolutely everyone. Feeling that little bit nervous in the way in which you are expressing yourself verbally, it happens to all of us, okay? Embrace it. Fix it by recording, okay? That's something that I'm actually going to put as one of our resolutions at the end of this meeting, is record yourself. Be extremely aware of how you're coming across, okay? Show that you're being attentive. Show that you're being a respectful listener. I've got a lovely person who is writing notes and showing me that she's being extremely attentive with her camera on, and she's showing me absolutely that she's hanging off some of the words that I'm saying, maybe not enjoying all of it, but definitely writing some notes down, all right? You can do this and show that you're an attentive listener, okay? And sometimes when we're doing our spoken words, yeah, remember that this can be all of us, yeah? This poor guy, not very confident, but with practice, when you're recording yourself, when you're doing these kinds of things, it can be a great resolution that you can have in the end, okay? I'm going to leave you guys with a game that I often play with my students here in China, and what I've had many of my students in Nepal do as well. And it's called Just a Minute. Just a minute. Let me write this down. And I'll put it into our chat window as well. Just a minute. Basically, in this game, you have to speak for 1 minute, 1 times minute, and you get basically a topic of your choice. Okay, so you can talk about absolutely anything. You can talk about how beautiful the mountains in Nepal are. You could talk about the US election, which is upcoming. You could talk about the price of fish in Afghanistan if you wanted to, right? Get any topic matter that you can. Try and speak fluently for 1 minute while recording yourself, okay? You can do it on video, or you can just do it on a voice recording. I would recommend video as well, to watch back and think, oh no, is that what I look like when I'm talking? Watch it back and think about what you are putting across while you are communicating, okay? This is a really, really good game to play, and it's something that you can see tangible improvement every time that you do it, all right? I would suggest for you guys not to stop for any longer than 3 seconds, okay? No stops. And try not to say right? Try not to say while you're speaking as well, right? That's a fantastic game, and you can really, really see improvement when you're doing this on your own, okay? Maybe you're going to be someone who moves around a lot. When I was a journalist in university, I tried to do a couple of what you call a piece to camera. And whenever I tried to do my piece to cameras, I'd be moving my shoulders and I'd be moving very awkwardly. I had to stand very still and be mindful of how still I was sitting or standing while speaking in front of the camera. And it took practice, yeah? Nobody becomes a great communicator without practicing, all right? Pick one topic, talk about it for 1 minute, okay? Change topics, be playful, all right? We are just about finished for today. I'm going to open up the room for anybody who wants to ask any questions at all. So, yeah, we've hit 6:39 in China. I think, what time is it in Nepal now? I think it's probably about 4:30, 4:20 maybe?
Almost 4:30, 4:24 right now.
Does anyone have any questions before we finish off for today?
Hello.
Yes.
It's me, Ashirwad, and I wanted to ask you a small question. Like previously, you had talked about the different personality types, like the energetic people and the considerate people and the spirited people.
Yes.
Can there be a possibility, like you gave an example of CEO as well, that if you are a CEO, then you have to be assertive at times, and there are people with different kinds of traits and personalities who are in the position of leadership. So is it required that we need to have an assertive kind of a personality or a spirited kind of a personality to lead, or can it be done with a considerate kind of a personality as well?
Yes, a very, very good question. Thank you, Ashirwad. This personality trait of being assertive, or being, let's just say that it's not being agreeable, okay? Not just to always agree with everyone that that is saying something, okay? Instead of just saying yes, yes all the time. CEOs and managers and successful people are often the ones that say, hey, wait a minute, stop, we need to talk, okay? So having that level of assertiveness literally just shows that you have a level of control, okay? So while you're talking with people, if you're able to demonstrate that maybe you're not going to just say yes, 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 and agree with everything that they're putting across and everything that they're saying, this is where you begin to maybe become that little bit more successful. Obviously, don't do it all the time and just create arguments for the sheer sake of it. But I would say try and say yes, but more often. Okay, be more explorative. Okay, so show that you understand what someone has said, right? So be that little bit agreeable. Okay, but say yes, but I think this. Yes, but there might be another opportunity. This is generally what a successful person will do, and people who are in positions of leadership are required to basically do this that little bit more often. So thanks for your question, Joshuwa. Does that kind of satisfy you a little bit? I know there are many different personality types, and you can't really have a perfect one, but make sure that you are someone, if you want to be a successful person, you're someone that says, yes, but I think this.
So, which means that we need to frame the sentences as per the demand of the situations.
Yes, I would say you would need to phrase, depending on who you're talking to, all right? Something that I probably should have been a little more explicit or direct about in our presentation was that depending on who you're speaking with, right? Obviously in Nepal, you will say Hajur or Tapai or Timi or To. This is a prime example of how you will change or modulate who you're speaking to, right? And it depends exactly on that context, okay? I would say though, try and say yes, but, yeah? Punta tara, right? Or honi tara mo estai lagyo, yeah? Try and be someone who can be not just saying yes, yeah? Don't just be someone who gets on the phone and says la, 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 yeah? Try and be that little bit more engaging. It'll be more expressive for you, okay? I've got a couple more questions that are coming through here. Shikshia Subedi has asked me, I have noticed that I interrupt the person who is talking sometimes, assuming I know they are trying to say, and start giving my opinion. Shikshia thinks that she's being extremely rude when she says this. How can I get rid of that habit? That's a really good one, Shikshia. That's a great question. This is something that it literally takes practice, okay? Being super aware of the fact that you're doing it, that maybe you are being that little bit too assertive, okay? Or maybe too disagreeable, maybe high maintenance to a certain degree. You can bring this back, okay? Everyone has the ability to do this, but it takes something that you call mindfulness to actually change this habit a little bit, all right? Perhaps try and even keep a diary where you write down and literally only focus on in that diary whether you interrupted anybody that day, okay? And reflect on it, okay? Think about your past self and the actions that you did and write about how you felt while you interrupted, and maybe even think about the reason that you interrupted, okay? I agree that it can be a little bit rude, but Shikshia, do you know what? It's something that can also be a very successful personality trait. You're showing that you're also being quite assertive, okay? So I think enjoy that personality trait that you are assertive. Definitely bring it back a little bit as well if you are perhaps impacting the relationships that you have as a result. I've got another question from Vijaya. Okay, although I can communicate with a single person easily, I have this trait where I tend to be so nervous and afraid whenever I have to encounter an interview or give a presentation, talk in groups, etc. At events like these, I actually tend to shiver and my stomach literally hurts. Oh, Vijaya, Why does this happen and how do I overcome it? This is totally natural, okay? No one is perfect when they're speaking in front of a group for the first time. It's extremely nerve-wracking to speak in front of more than one person, right? It's not a natural thing. In order to practice this, I would say do your just a minute game, okay? Try and do this and look at how you're communicating. Be self-aware in who you are, Vijaya. This is something that will take practice and it's not going to change overnight, all right? Plan some steps, okay? I would say step 1 is watch yourself talk. Video, record yourself and watch it back and think, how do I come across? Do I need to change anything about the way that I'm sitting? Or do I need to stop looking down when I'm talking? Do I need to maybe adjust the way that I'm speaking, the tone of my voice? There's many different things that you can modulate and change. I would say then try and talk with close friends more often. Invite more than one person to sit and talk with you. Tell stories, tell jokes. Joke telling is an amazing, amazing way in which you can communicate with other people, and you can grow that little bit more confidence as well. Obviously, you don't have to write the joke. Look up a joke and practice telling it. Yeah, it can be very, very fun to do as well. I'm going to just about wrap up because we'll be going for 90 minutes. Udaya says thanks. Leo has said, when it's time to speak in front of a group, although I prepared confidently, I go off the subject and start repeating things and forget parts that I've prepared. How can I overcome this? Leo, this definitely isn't an anomaly, buddy. Everybody does this kind of stuff. To wrap up, all right, I've got Shweta saying we're running out of time. Leo, I would just, hang on, it's not Leo, it's Yashashmi. I would say plan before you speak. Make bullet points while you're going to be presenting, okay? If you're going to be presenting to a large group of people, make bullet points or notes about what you're saying. Have some prompts so that you don't go off topic. This is something that, you know, it's a practice, it's a skill. I struggle with this. I think you would probably have seen in my presentation today. I went on lots of little tangents. Make sure that they're relevant though, and that you can get yourself back to the point so that you don't completely lose where you were, all right? Do notes, okay? Bullet points can help in a very, very big way. Sweta has just sent a message to the group saying that we're running out of time. I will leave it there. If anybody would like to ask me any more questions, I'll put my email in the Zoom group here. It is joshuamatthewryan@gmail.com. I think that's been spelled right. Oh, I haven't spelled that correctly. Don't copy that one. joshuamatthewryan@gmail.com. We will leave the meeting there. I hope everyone was able to get at least something out of this meeting, whether it was using your hands, the gesture for attaining confidence. Maybe it was just a little bit of English as well. I appreciate all of you guys tuning in and trying to improve yourselves in any way. Obviously, nobody is perfect. We can always improve ourselves, and keep on enjoying you time while you're in the midst of this epidemic and lockdown. It's not fun, but think about things that you can tangibly improve, all right? I want everyone to try and do a jam game, okay? Just a minute. If you look it up online, talk to your iPad, talk to your phone for 1 minute and watch yourself back, all right? Maybe potentially do the 16 personalities test, okay? Be a little bit more aware of who you are and how you're coming across to people. And generally, you're going to have some great communications and some great experiences. I will sign off. I'll hand it over to Shweta. Take care. Namaste, Sabajanalai.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Jos. Well, I
Welcome.
must say that everything you said was all on point, true, and very impressive. I really loved how you communicate with us and how you try to engage with us, saying our Nepali language and doing different activities. And I really loved when you said curry in Nepali. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes. Communication is indeed important, how is said, but effective communication stands at the top. The more you open up, the more you get better at it. So start communicating with all your heart. After every session, it is obvious that we have some questions and answers or some queries. So we set a modality of questions and answers, and I think that we pretty summed everything well, and you are clear about everything. And now I would like to hand over this floor to our co-coordinator, Ms. Simran Paudel, for a short and sweet vote of thanks. Over to you, Simran.
Thank you, Sweta, for giving me this platform to give vote of thanks. A very good afternoon to all. Hello, it's me, Simran Paudel, co-coordinator of this program. My special gratitude to our speaker, Joshuwa Ryan sir, for this great session. The way in which you explained this subject was extraordinary. I think most of the participants are clear about the art of effective communications after this fruitful session. Looking forward for more wonderful session with you again, sir. I'd like to thank all the participants for your time and dedication. Thank you, Leo Club of Kathmandu Chabahil, for this knowledgeable opportunity. And at last, but not the least, thank you so much, everyone, who helped to make this session a grand success. Have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simran. I expect that the promise we made earlier have been fulfilled at some extent. I would like to inform all the participants that we will be sending you a feedback form. So please give your honest reviews as this is also a part of effective communication. Also, tomorrow we are having an effective planning at the same time. So hope to see you there. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Let's explore more of what you have and what you can. Signing off, Leo Club of Kathmandu Chabahil. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.